Great Expectation, Chapter 2, The Marshes. The soldiers ran into the marshes, and we saw two men. They were fighting and covered in mud. The soldiers pulled them away from each other. In the light of the soldiers' torches, I saw the man that I had helped. I wanted to say, I didn't tell the soldiers where to find you, but all I could do was shake my head. He gave me a long, strange look, which I will never forget. I have something to say, he said. It was me. I stole the food from the blacksmith's house. This morning. He looked at Joe and added, I am sorry that I ate your meat pie. You're welcome. We don't want you to be hungry, Joe replied kindly. The man turned away. Then he was taken to a boat nearby, which took him to the black prison ship, far out on the marshes. We watched as he climbed back onto the ship in the distance and disappeared. At that moment, the torches went out. A year passed. I worked every day, helping neighbors with the small jobs. But in the evening, I went to the village school. The old lady who taught me often fell asleep, leaving her granddaughter Biddy to show me how to read and write. One night, Joe saw me sitting by the fire as I was practicing my writing. You know, Pip, you are very clever, he said. Did you never go to school, Joe? I asked. No, Pip, he replied. My father didn't let me go. But he had a good heart. He taught me to be a blacksmith. And after he died, I met your sister. She's a fine woman. I looked into the fire. I am glad you think so, Joe. I said at last. I wish she wouldn't hit you, though, Joe said. I would rather she hit me than you. We'll always be best friends, won't we, Pip? Just then, Mrs. Joe came in. If this boy isn't grateful to me now, he never will be, she said. I tried to look grateful, but I didn't understand what Mrs. Joe meant. Miss Havisham wants Pip to go to her house, she said. And he must go, or I will make him work hard here. Everyone in the village had heard of Miss Havisham. She was a very rich lady who lived in the nearest town. However, most people had never seen her because she never left her large old house. So how does she know Pip? She doesn't know Pip. Uncle Pumblechook visited her and she asked him if he knew a boy who would go there to play with a child who lives there. Mrs. Joe replied, The boy will make his fortune by going to Miss Havisham's house, and he's going there tomorrow. Then she jumped on me like an eagle on a lamb. I was washed very well that night. Uncle Pumblechook took me to Miss Havisham's house in my best clothes the next day, until a very pretty but proud young girl appeared. This is Pip, said Mr. Pumblechook. Come in, Pip, she said, opening the gate. Uncle Pumblechook was not invited in, so I left him at the gate. I followed the girl through an untidy garden. The house looked unused, and most of the doors were closed. Everything was dark inside, and we went upstairs with a candle. The girl left me at a door, telling me to enter. Inside was a dressing room lit by candles. The curtains were closed, so no daylight could enter. And then I saw her, the strangest lady I had ever seen or would ever see. She was dressed completely in white, with a long white veil and flowers in her hair. But her hair was white. The flowers were dead, and the white dress was now yellow with age. I saw a bride in a wedding dress, but everything about her was old and sad. "Let me look at you," she said. As I stood before her, I noticed that the clock had stopped at 20 to 9. "Do you know what I have here?" the lady continued, her hands on her heart. "Yes, madam," I replied. "It's your heart." "A broken heart," she said. Then, after a moment, she added, "I am tired and I am bored. Play." I wondered what game I could play, so I replied that I could not play alone. "Call Stella," the old lady said. When Stella entered, I saw that she was the girl who had let me in. Now she was told to play with me. "But he is just a poor working boy," she complained. Miss Havisham said something to her. I could not hear clearly, but I thought she said, "Well, you can break his heart." And so Stella and I played games while Miss Havisham watched silently. "What dirty hands you have," Stella said unkindly. "And what ugly boots." I was ashamed. Finally, Miss Havisham called me to her side. "What do you think of her?" she asked, looking at Stella. "I think she is very proud and very pretty and very rude," I said. "I would like to go now, please." Miss Havisham made me promise to come back in 6 days. Then Stella led me back through the dark house and out into the garden. Before I left, Stella gave me some food and drink, but did not hand it to me. Instead, she put it on the ground. Tears came to my eyes. When she saw that I was crying, she smiled. I returned home, hurt and ashamed of my simple life. In the kitchen, Mrs. Joe and Uncle Pumblechook were waiting for me. They wanted to know what had happened, but I didn't want to tell them the truth. Later, when I was alone with Joe, I told him everything. I said that the beautiful girl at Miss Havisham's house had said I was common, and that I felt ashamed. Joe told me to be happy with my position in life. But I could not forget what had happened. I knew that this was the beginning of something that would change the rest of my life. I decided to learn as much as I could at the village school. If I had a better education, perhaps Stella would be kinder. 2 days later, I asked Biddy if she would help me more with my lessons, and she happily agreed. The village school was very busy and noisy, but when I left it that evening, I hoped that with hard work I would one day leave my simple life behind and become a fine gentleman. On my way home, I met Joe at the village inn. He was sitting with a man I had not met before. He looked at me strangely. "It's bad weather tonight," Joe said. "The mist is so thick, you wouldn't know there was a prison ship out there on the marshes." "Oh, is there?" asked the man. "I don't know this area. It seems very lonely out on those marshes." "Marshes are always lonely," replied Joe. "Perhaps you're right," said the man. The man then asked if any escaped convicts had been found recently, and I began to feel uncomfortable. Then the man stirred his cup of tea, and I saw that he was using a blacksmith's file. It was the same file that I had taken from Joe's workshop a year ago, but Joe did not notice.